Final Whisper. Remember that line Thanos says in Avengers Endgame, way before the final battle, when he says he's going to wipe out the entire universe?
I will shred this universe down to its last atom.
Back then it sounded like just another dramatic threat, but looking at it now with Secret Wars on the way, it hits different, because he basically described exactly what Doctor Doom does in the 2015 comics. Doom gathers the pieces of destroyed realities, creates Battleworld, and starts running everything like a god. Nobody remembers the past, heroes become regular citizens, and the world starts over under his control. And you know who was standing there hearing all of that? Tony Stark. Tony always had that paranoia about protecting the world before the problem shows up. Suits, Ultron, Accords, alliances, it was all about control. So the theory is this: what if, in some universe, Tony didn't die in Endgame? What if that idea of resetting everything kept echoing in his head? From there, the path to Doom becomes terrifyingly logical. Doom also starts out wanting to save the world. The problem is he decides only he can do it, meaning it wouldn't be a villain born out of hatred, but out of good intentions taken way too far. Maybe that line from Thanos wasn't just a threat, maybe it was a warning we're only understanding now. Hidden technology. The second big clue that Doctor Doom has always been present in the MCU shows up where almost nobody usually pays attention: the technology. Starting with Avengers Endgame, basically the entire structure of the multiverse starts revolving around one concept: quantum energy applied to manipulating time and space. In the MCU's main universe, Earth 616, the one who solves time travel is Tony Stark. He builds a quantum platform capable of bending space-time and creating stable bridges between specific points on the timeline. To the audience, that looked like just another proof of Tony's genius. But in the comics, that invention didn't start with him. The first character to create that exact kind of tech was Victor Von Doom. In the comics, Doctor Doom develops a quantum-powered platform that allows travel through time and other realities. The function is the same, the logic is the same, the only difference is the look. The MCU adapted the idea, changed the design, and put the creation in Tony Stark's hands. Conceptually, it's the same machine. That connection becomes even clearer in Doctor Strange in the multiverse of madness. When Reed Richards appears for the first time, he uses a teleport platform that's almost identical to Doom's machine in the comics. The film's producer even confirmed the design was inspired directly by Doctor Doom's technology. That suggests that in that universe, Doom already existed, and Reed has already crossed paths with him. The connection expands when we look at the TVA and Kang. The portals the TVA uses work on the same quantum principles. The difference is basically just the color and how refined they are. In Quantumania, Kang's multiversal engine also runs on that energy, able to cross entire universes. In the comics, Kang copies and evolves Doom's technology. In the MCU, everything points to the multiverse being built on that same foundation. Doom's technology was always there, it just changed names. The Castle. Maybe no Marvel series has dropped clues as blatantly about Doctor Doom as Loki. In the last episode of Season 1, after Loki and Sylvie enchant Alioth in the Void, they finally reach the Citadel at the end of time. The green fog opens up and reveals a colossal castle floating over a fragment of rock, right in the center of the sacred timeline, the heart of Earth 616. The series says that place belongs to He Who Remains, but if you look closely, something doesn't add up. In the comics, He Who Remains also lives in a citadel on an asteroid, but the MCU version doesn't resemble his at all. Instead, the look is almost identical to Doctor Doom's castle in Latveria. Even the green fog around the place immediately points back to the character. When Loki and Sylvie walk in, the clue gets even louder. Two massive statues that resemble Doctor Doom are staring at them, right at the entrance. That completely changes how you read the story. It suggests that Citadel wasn't built by He Who Remains, but taken from him after the first multiversal war. What we see in Loki could be what's left of Doom's reign. That idea connects to Secret Wars. In the comics, after the multiverse collapses, Doom becomes God Emperor and rules from a throne outside of time, with a colossal structure behind him. Loki's final throne in Season 2 is visually almost identical. Both exist at the edge of the Void, outside reality. The Void itself works like a version of Battleworld, a pileup of broken realities full of variants and the remains of dead universes. And one of those seeds shows up almost invisibly in Moon Knight. Right in the first episode, Stephen Grant blacks out and wakes up next to a gigantic castle carved into the top of a mountain. The scene goes by fast, but the visual jumps out immediately. The town right below it also doesn't look random. Small, European, with old buildings and a winding mountain road leading straight to the fortress. Exactly how Latveria is usually portrayed. It's basically a visual echo of the territory ruled by Victor Von Doom. And then comes the craziest detail. In the next scene, Stephen escapes that same town driving an ice cream truck. Inside the vehicle, a box flashes on screen with the label Von D, a direct Victor Von Doom reference thrown in there like it's nothing. Dark childhood. Now we get into one of the most subtle and at the same time most unsettling clues of all. In Loki Season 2, there's an apparently innocent conversation between Loki and Mobius. Mobius mentions a TVA mission near the Black Sea, where they were after a variant responsible for causing around 5,000 deaths. But when they get there, surprise, the variant was just an 8-year-old boy. In the moment it flies under the radar, it sounds like just another weird TVA story. But if you know Doctor Doom, that detail sets off a massive alarm. In the comics, Victor Von Doom was also exactly 8 years old when his life gets turned upside down. That's the age when his mother's soul is taken away, an event that marks the beginning of the character's dark path. And more than that, Latveria, Doom's homeland, is right in the region near the Black Sea, meaning Marvel very carefully chose 2 details that are way too specific to be a coincidence: the kid's age and the location, and there's still the number of victims. 5,000 deaths might sound insane for a kid, but for Doom that's almost nothing. He isn't a regular villain, he's a multiversal threat. The theory is that story wasn't random. It may have been the MCU's first hint about Doctor Doom's origin. A seemingly harmless kid ignored by the TVA, who in the future would become one of the most dangerous beings in reality. If that gets confirmed in Avengers Doomsday, Loki may have hidden Doom's birth right in front of us. But as always, Marvel buried it in a quick conversation, hoping almost nobody would notice. An old plan. In Avengers Endgame, Marvel may have left much bigger clues than they seemed at first. The idea of Robert Downey Jr. returning to the MCU as Doctor Doom didn't come up as a last-minute move after plan changes with other villains. According to one theory, that possibility had been floating around behind the scenes for many years, long before the audience could even imagine the multiverse in action. Kevin Feige had already played with the idea of seeing Robert Downey Jr. as Victor Von Doom back in the days of the Fantastic Four movies, directed by Tim Story in the 2000s. At that time, Downey almost ended up playing the character. With the birth of the MCU, the plan changed shape, but it didn't disappear. It was simply put away, slowly maturing. During the Infinity Saga, especially under the Russo brothers, small seeds started getting planted. Tony Stark was always portrayed as someone obsessed with control, prevention, and the idea of putting a suit of armor around the world. That mindset, born after traumatic events like the alien invasion in the Avengers, intensifies across the films and echoes the classic Doctor Doom mentality in the comics. The theory suggests this buildup wasn't accidental. Over the years, the MCU shaped Tony into someone willing to cross moral lines in the name of a greater good. That creates a perfect bridge between the hero the audience knows and a possible alternate version who chose a different path. Well, then Tony died, and when everyone thought Robert Downey Jr. would never come back to Marvel movies, the reveal happened. Meaning his casting as Doctor Doom wouldn't be a course correction, but the activation of an old idea. It's a crazy and very unlikely theory. I know, but there's a possibility. The adoption theory. In Avengers Endgame, one seemingly simple scene may hide one of the biggest clues about Doctor Doom in the MCU. During the time heist after Loki escapes with the Tesseract, Tony Stark and Steve Rogers travel back to 1970 to try to recover the artifact and also the Pym particles needed to return to the present. At the military base, Tony ends up meeting someone extremely important, Howard Stark, a brilliant but emotionally distant scientist who worked directly with the Tesseract. The two meet and have a brief conversation. During the exchange, Howard mentions that his wife, Maria Stark, is pregnant.
My wife's expecting, and
At that moment, the camera focuses on Tony's face, clearly confused, as if something doesn't quite add up. Tony asks how far along the pregnancy is. Officially, in MCU canon, Tony was born on May 29, 1970, and this scene supposedly takes place on April 7th of the same year. At first glance, there wouldn't be any issue, but the theory points out an important technical detail tied to the time machine itself. Tony programmed the system for the date July 4th, 1970, Independence Day in the United States, and, interestingly, Captain America's birthday. That would explain several things. Howard working on a holiday, bringing flowers to his wife as an apology, and even carrying a can of sauerkraut, a classic hot dog, topping typically associated with that date. It would also explain Tony's shock, since by July 4th he should have already been born. In the comics, Tony Stark is adopted. The theory suggests that in the MCU, the baby Maria was expecting wasn't Tony, but possibly Arno Stark, a child with serious health issues kept hidden by Howard. After that, Howard would have adopted a foreign baby and raised him as his biological son, opening the door to a much darker origin connected to Victor Von Doom. Direct sequel. According to some leaks, Avengers, Doomsday isn't just another Avengers movie. It functions as a direct sequel to Avengers Endgame, and that completely changes how we look at what once felt like a definitive ending. Endgame didn't just close the Infinity Saga, it quietly opened the multiverse saga. In Endgame, the Avengers do something extremely dangerous that you probably remember well. They travel through time to fix a defeat they refuse to accept. The time heist creates alternate timelines, variants, and branching universes. The Ancient One herself explains that messing with events causes serious consequences, even if the stones are returned later. What Hulk fails to realize is that returning the artifacts doesn't erase the damage caused. That's where the multiverse is truly born in the MCU. A Thanos from another timeline invades the present. Loki escapes with the Tesseract and creates a reality that eventually leads to the fall of the TVA. Gamora begins existing outside her original timeline. Steve Rogers chooses to live in the past and creates an entirely new timeline alongside Peggy Carter. None of this is resolved in Endgame. Everything is left open. Those reckless choices are the foundation of Doomsday. The movie directly inherits the mistakes of Endgame. Tony Stark creating time travel, Doctor Strange constantly interfering with the flow of reality, the multiverse being unleashed after the fall of He Who Remains. It all starts there. The idea is that the possible doom wouldn't come from just any Tony Stark, but specifically from the Tony of the Battle of New York, just not from the official 2012 timeline. It would be the Tony from the reality disrupted by the older Avengers in Endgame, when they go back to retrieve the Tesseract and Loki's scepter. This Tony goes through things the original Stark never experienced. First, his technology fails. The arc reactor suffers interference from Ant-Man, and he nearly dies, saved only by a lightning strike from Thor. For someone obsessed with control, that alone is a massive shock. Then the Tesseract simply disappears. Loki escapes. The villain who nearly destroyed New York vanishes out of nowhere. And as if that weren't enough, Tony sees impossible things on the security cameras. Two Captain Americas fighting.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
One of them talking about Bucky being alive,
Bucky is alive.
and the other saying,
Hail Hydra.
imagine what all of that would do to his mind. Total paranoia. From there, it makes sense that he would start investigating every detail, discover the existence of magic by following Hulk's trail to the Sanctum Sanctorum, and realize that the world is far bigger and more dangerous than he ever imagined. Unlike the main Tony, this Stark would encounter sorcery years before meeting Doctor Strange. Combine that with the trauma of New York, the failure of his own technology, and the constant fear of losing control, and you've got the perfect setup for a Tony who decides to go beyond science. A Tony who starts studying magic. A Tony who mixes armor with spells, and exactly like Doom. The theory goes even further and suggests that he could abandon New York, leave behind the identity of a billionaire, and disappear off the radar, possibly ending up in Europe, in Latveria, adopting a new name, a new purpose, and a new destiny. Iron Man would have failed, so he would create something else. Doctor Doom, even with the TVA supposedly erasing that timeline,
Reset the timeline.
Loki showed that the multiverse ended up branching anyway, meaning that reality could very well still exist out there. And look at the irony. From the same event that created the Loki responsible for holding the multiverse together, the man destined to destroy it may also have been born. The Avengers trying to save the universe ended up creating its two extremes. And if this turns out to be true, Doom won't come out of nowhere. He was already in Endgame. We just didn't notice. Beyond the multiverse, and of course the trailers have already been released and the theories have started rolling in. The third Doomsday trailer is a clear example. Everything takes place inside the old X-Men base, a location that already carries decades of temporal confusion, alternate versions, and overlapping realities. And it's exactly there that another clue tied to Doctor Doom and the multiverse appears. The X-Men timeline has always been a puzzle. Between time travel, broken timelines, and parallel universes, multiple versions of the same characters coexist. Professor X is the clearest example. He's been played by James McAvoy in First Class, and by different versions of Patrick Stewart in Logan, Days of Future Past, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. In the trailer, he appears dressed exactly like he was in Days of Future Past, signaling a specific timeline. At the same time, we see Cyclops, played by James Marsden, wearing a suit identical to the one from X-Men 97, which takes place in a completely different universe. These versions shouldn't be together, but they are. Different realities occupying the same physical space doesn't happen by accident. In the comics, this is the foundation of Secret Wars. After the collapse of the multiverse, Doctor Doom gathers fragments of different universes and creates Battleworld, a planet assembled from pieces of multiple realities. Heroes from different versions begin coexisting, even though they're incompatible with each other. That kind of mix points directly to what comes after Avengers, Doomsday. First, Doom saves the multiverse, then he decides that only he can rule it. What starts as salvation ends in domination, exactly like in the comics. The Hunter, The early Avengers. Doomsday trailers place children at the center of the story in a way that doesn't feel innocent at all. In the first one, we see Steve Rogers back. The former Captain America appears arriving at a remote house, but there's something in his arms. The implication is clear. It could be a child he had with Peggy Carter in that alternate timeline, or the beginning of an unlikely new chapter in Steve's life. In the second trailer, Thor is shown walking through a forest toward a battle, while remembering peaceful moments with Love, his adopted daughter. The two appear wearing matching pajamas, in scenes that give off a sense of comfort and affection. So far, everything feels way too warm for a movie that promises to revolve around Doctor Doom, and that's where the character's history completely changes the tone. In the comics, Doom has a deeply disturbing relationship with children. In a story from the 1970s, he claims to have a son, who later turns out to be a clone, created solely as a spare body to transfer his own mind into. Years later, he adopts a boy named Kristoff, give him a happy childhood, and then wipes his mind to turn him into a living copy of himself. Another important name is Franklin Richards. In the comics, Doom kidnaps the boy and tries to offer him to Mephisto in exchange for his mother's soul. Franklin recently appeared in Fantastic Four, First Steps directly tying this storyline to the current MCU. With Mephisto already introduced in Ironheart and so many scenes involving the children of heroes, the question hangs in the air. Is Doom just watching? Or has he already started gathering children to repeat a deal that never ends well?
You can call me Mephisto.
And what about you? Do you remember any other moment in Marvel where Doctor Doom might have been present? If so, leave a comment and let us know. On screen, there's a video where we show the canceled Marvel movies that could have changed everything. Click there and watch it. I'll see you there.